So can you please explain what's the difference between enumerable and queryable and how it works?
So if we talk about iQueryable, usually when we're working with databases, for example, searching, fetching some data, so iQueryable, it allows us just to write some query, yes, and not execute it in memory in our application. So we can deliver, all this filtration, selection, other stuff on database side. If we talk about enumerable, it's usually we're doing all the stuff like filtering, I don't know, projection, yes, in our application side.
How it works inside. So do you know how what iQueryable used to build queries?
Yes, so as I know, it uses like a tree. So when we just writing the query, yes, we're building some tree and execute it. For example, if we talk about link you to SQL, yeah, then when we enumerating it, like calling just dot to list to array or just executing in some loop, for example, in for each. In that case, the link queue creates some query in SQL, yes, and executing it on database side.
Do you know what is an expression tree?
Yes. Expression tree. This is like the core feature when we like allow us to modify our query before the executing. So every time when we just writing some, I don't know, where condition and adding some other where condition, yes, just passing through other methods, we can modificate it and like change the query.
Okay. Can you please explain what's the difference between task and thread?
Task and thread. So usually if we talk about the task, so it's operation, which usually uses syntax sugar like async await. So there are two kind of operations. It's IO bound and CPU bound. So if you talk about CPU bound, so when we executing some asynchronous operations, it's continuous on parallel on other thread. But usually, if we talk about IO bound, like working with file, database, like holding connection strings and other stuff. So usually, it allow us to not to block our current thread and execute. Move it to the thread pool and doing some other stuff. If we talk about multi-threading, yes. The main difference is like they are go all parallel, but we have some, I would say, troubles, yes, when we share some resources between them. So here we need to somehow validate, sync them. So there are a lot of like mechanisms, like using mutex or log. It's kind of a monitor. Syntax sugar for monitor and other stuff. With this mechanism, we can sync some shared resources.
You mentioned about, okay, I didn't get answer to difference between task and thread, but when we create new task, will new thread created or not?
It depends. So it doesn't require to create new thread. So as I said, it depends. Is it CPU bound task or IO bound? If we like doing some heavy calculations, so yeah, usually it's going to other thread and working parallel. Yes, some calculating some other stuff. If we talk about IO bound, so it's not necessary to working it on separate task thread.
Who will decide control creating new thread?
Actually, we don't create a new thread. Yes, we have a task scheduler. which all like manipulate with thread pool. So thread pool, it's pool of threads, yes? When we just because creating and releasing the thread is very heavy operation. So usually we have predefined threads in our thread pool and we just using them.
So what's the purpose of this thread pool?
So as I said, like creating and releasing thread, yes, it's like very cost operation. So in that case, we almost have like predefined some count of threads. Yes, it's called thread pool. When we have like already defined and created some of threads, yes, and we're just using them for our purpose.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yeah. Iker, do you have any question about this threading?
About threading, maybe only once. You know that there is a lock construction, syntax construction in C# to support multi-threading and access resources from parallel threads, right, for blocking?
Yes.
Yes, and you also, you know, we have, of course, async construction like async await. Why we cannot use async await from lock?
Usually because there might be some deadlocks. So deadlock, yeah, it means like when one thread waiting when the other thread, yes, will be finished, and the second one waits the first one. So we just like some.
But what is the mechanism? What is the mechanism of deadlock here? Why it can happen here? Yes, you correctly described generally how deadlock looks like, but how it can happen when we call async await construction from inside of lock.
From inside.
How it can happen? Why? It does not look dangerous. I don't see when we can have here, from the first glance at least, here situation when one thread, when two threads wait on the two different resources, right? This typical situation for deadlock. How it can happen here?
How it happened here? So I don't know how to explain it. It's hard to me. So
okay, let's move on. You do know what is a thread pool in .NET?
yes.
Okay, please explain and why we need thread pool in .NET, because maybe we can avoid using it. Maybe we can live without thread pool at all.
Yeah, I recently thought about that. So okay, I can repeat. So we just creating thread. Yes, it's heavy cost operation. Yes, we need to make some memory allocation by our operating system. Yeah, and also we need to release it after we like use it, and we don't need just this thread.
Okay, so okay, that makes sense. Imagine that we have no thread pool in .NET. By the way, the situation was in .NET many years ago, and Microsoft developers created the thread pool from scratch. Could you please propose the simplest implementation of thread pool using just thread class and some synchronization primitives? Maybe you mentioned that you know about synchronization primitives.
So yeah, we will need to some like thread scheduler, yes, which we
no, it's not about thread scheduler. Thread scheduler, it's a different construction. It's about thread pool.
So yeah, we
thread scheduler use thread pool, but thread pool, it's a very low level construction. How to implement it?
How it was implemented, thread pool.
So some simplest. I know that in Microsoft they spent many hours to create very optimized thread pool with all corner cases, but just propose the simplest implementation of thread pool.
Yeah,
You
so
see that the main idea of thread pool is have a set of hot thread, because creating thread every time, it's a very heavy operation, right? So that means that during creation of thread pool, we should create some kind of some pool of hot threads, right? And so how to do it?
So it's, from my point of view, like we can just predefine, yes, some collection of threads and iterate them. Just give like when it is necessary.
No, please describe
Okay.
in more detail. Okay, if you. Okay.
I think we can go forward.